Imagine if tomorrow the world started calling Britain the Northwest European Islands. Picture headlines about Northwest European Islands culture or Northwest European Islands politics. Sounds ridiculous, right? Yet, something similar is being done right now to the world's oldest civilization. India, a nation of over 1 billion people, is being slowly erased by two simple words: South Asia. Have you ever wondered what the United States and China have in common? They are both powerful countries that can maintain their own unique identities separate from their immediate neighbors. Both nations are neighborhood bullies on their respective blocks, flexing their muscles and demanding undue respect. And nobody hassles them about that exceptionalism. But India is dissolved into a hodgepodge called South Asia, a term intentionally kept vague. No one's quite sure where the term South Asia came from. Some say it was coined by an American professor who had close ties to the Pakistani establishment. Others blame it on Indians who are still influenced by colonial thinking. But regardless of where it came from, it appears that South Asia is not just a geographical term. Because this isn't about geography, it's about identity and the power of words to shape it. Because words have power, and on a long enough timeline, the term South Asia has the power to erase an entire civilization. The recent rising use of South Asia is a well-crafted narrative weapon, a powerful tool to erase the idea of India as a continuous ancient civilization. Years from now, you might find yourself explaining to your children why we commonly use Latin America but not Indian subcontinent. Unless, that is, we realize the insidious nature of this linguistic sleight of hand. But who benefits from this linguistic sleight of hand? For a long time, Spanish-speaking countries have been referred to as Latin America, South America, or Central America. Using America in these names hasn't erased the individual cultures of the countries in these regions. Mexico didn't cease to be Mexico, and Argentina didn't stop being Argentina. However, the so-called South Asia experts argue that calling the region the Indian subcontinent, its centuries-old name, gives too much importance to India and ignores the other modern-day countries in the area. But this doesn't make sense, because there are many other regions in the world, like the Arabian Peninsula, that have kept their historical names without any issues. It's as if they are selectively deciding which ancient identities get to survive in the modern lexicon. A few years ago, a scandal broke out in the UK, where gangs comprising men of Pakistani origin groomed and sexually exploited girls as young as 9 years old. But the headlines spoke of South Asian gangs, as if Pakistan, India, Bangladesh and other countries in the region were all to collectively blame. Although almost every perpetrator in that news story was of Pakistani origin. In fact, if you look closely at how the term South Asian is used, you'll notice a pattern. When there is news about criminals in England, the headlines often emphasize their quote-unquote South Asian background. But in reality, the criminals are almost always of Pakistani background. On the other hand, if an Indian person commits a crime, their Indian identity is clearly mentioned and they are not called South Asian. It's like watching a magic trick. Now you see India and now you don't. When it's an achievement, it's Pakistani. When it is a crime, suddenly it's South Asian. The same thing happens in pop culture. When Western media writes about Kamala Khan from Miss Marvel, they choose to focus on her Pakistani and Muslim identity. But when they write about Charitra Chandran, an actress with deep roots in India, they just call her South Asian, even though she constantly talks about her Indian identity in interviews. Coincidence? Because it seems like anything good about Pakistan is labeled as Pakistani, while anything good about India is called South Asian. Conversely, anything bad about India is loudly proclaimed as Indian or Hindu, but never South Asian. To the average person, calling the Indian subcontinent South Asia might not seem like a big deal, but the truth is that it erases the long history and culture of the region. It's like saying that the countries that exist now are more important than the civilization that has existed for thousands of years. Imagine your identity slowly eroding like a coastline against relentless waves. Each time South Asia is used instead of India, another grain of sand is washed away. In ancient books and writings, there are many names for the Indian subcontinent, like Saptasindhu, Hindustan, Aryavarta, and Bharatvarsha. These names show that India has a long and important history. To replace that incredible heritage, those names full of history and ancient meaning, with South Asia, is it fair? Would they ever call the Roman Empire a Southern European empire? Of course not. Its distinct identity and contribution to history is wholeheartedly recognized. Would they ever call the Mongol Empire a Central Asian Horsemen's Collective? Not a chance. Then why South Asia? There are Indians today who have no problem calling themselves South Asian. And to them I ask, does an Australian person ever say that they are Oceanian? Would a Korean person ever identify as East Asian? And we all know that a Frenchman wouldn't be caught dead addressing himself as anything other than Français. In an ideal world, labels shouldn't matter so much. But in the times we live in, it's worrying to see that there is a planned effort to erase the traditional, historical, and cultural meaning of an entire region, of an entire culture. This is important not just for the people who come from that culture, but for anyone who cares about preserving the histories of ancient civilizations. Because there is no such thing as a South Asian culture or civilization. It's nothing but a malicious idea. So the next time you hear or you read South Asia, ask yourself, what is being erased and why?